Welcome to the Miliani Neighborhood Board meeting. Tonight, let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Happy New Year. It's 2024. It's our January meeting, so we're kicking it off strong, and we have a wonderful presence here in the room tonight as well as online. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season, and let's get back to work, folks. I just wanted to remind everyone about our public notice, roll call, and quorum. So this is a hybrid meeting, and what I have to do here is I have to manage our our members of the public, as well as our board members who are online, which you can see at the presentation area to the left, to my left. So when you have questions, board members, please raise your hand. I'll be scanning the room. Board members online, please also raise your hand so I can see you online. And of course, we'll open questions up to members of the public as well. Just raise your hand. Members of the public, for those here in person, when you do ask your question, please approach the microphone to my right here, introduce yourself for the record, and proceed with your question. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rachel, our new neighborhood board assistant.
Nice to meet everybody.
And I'm going to kick it over to you, Rachel, so that you can go ahead and take the roll call and so that we can establish quorum. Thank you.
Okay, so say present after I call your last name. Bass,
Present.
Flores, Ka'anehe, Ka'apana, Aki, Kim,
Here.
Lee, Ozawa, Smart,
Here.
Among,
Here.
Free, Trotter,
Present.
Williams,
Present.
Hermati, Park. Okay. Lee, Mustafan, Ross, Ahina, Tal,
Present.
Nakamine, Smachina,
Present.
Segura, Upuka'a. I think that's everybody.
And what is our quorum?
So yes, we
No,
have
it's not.
quorum.
No, it's not. Dan Freed here.
On freezer.
Thanks, Ann.
Oh, on freezer. Okay. We have 19 as quorum.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, folks, let's get into monthly reports. I see that we have Honolulu Fire Department here with us tonight. Welcome. Please proceed with your report.
Good evening, members of the board, public. My name is Fire Captain Sean Ray. I'm at the Miliani Fire Station, and I have the statistics for this month. We had 2 structure fires, 1 nuisance fire, which includes rubbish fires outside of a structure or vehicle, 1 cooking fire, 2 activated alarms with no fire. And for emergencies, we had 83 medical and 4 motor vehicle crash collisions. And I will be presenting the fire safety tip for this month. Lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries supply power to many kinds of devices, including smartphones, laptops, e-scooters, e-bikes, e-cigarettes, smoke alarms, toys, and even cars. If not used correctly or if damaged, these batteries can catch on fire or explode. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Only use the battery and charging cord designed for the device. Replace cords that are damaged, frayed, or sticky to the touch. Charge devices in a cool area with good ventilation. Do not keep charging the device or device battery after it is fully charged. E-scooters and e-bikes should only be charged outdoors. Smaller devices should be placed on a hard, non-flammable surface when charging. Never under your pillow, on your bed, or on a couch. And store batteries away from anything that can catch fire.
Before we open up to questions, Captain, could you give us an update on the Miliani fire from last year?
It is, to the best of my knowledge, completely out, and it doesn't pose any.
Is there any updates to the investigation as to what started it?
I am not too sure exactly on that. I can get back to you, although it did start near the lychee farm, which is about 3/4 of a mile past.
Great. Members, are there any questions for HFP? Yes, Leslie.
Recently, one of the residents that live up in Miliani had a flying lantern, the ones that they fly with a balloon hot kind of thing that flies in the air. It crashed on her house and could have possibly burnt her house down. Now, I was reading it and talking to my friend about it. I figured it could be one of the possibilities how that fire probably started. Has anything turned up as far as like a lantern or some kind of weird looking frame that fell out of the sky? Or
Yeah, not to my knowledge. I can find out if anything like that happened,
Well-
but that's what those are. I think.
yeah, they're not allowed, just like the guy blowing up fireworks, but it still happens. And the fact that it fell on her house means that somebody is lighting lanterns in Mililani, and we got lit lanterns flying in the sky and falling on people's homes. And when I seen that lantern, I couldn't help but think that it could have started that fire. But I just want to let you know, and you can follow through with what you can find out on your end. Thank you.
Members, are there any other questions for Honolulu Fire? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here tonight. Hope it's a quiet evening. Corporal Muna from Honolulu Police Department, welcome. Happy New Year.
All right, aloha, good evening, everybody. And yeah, Happy New Year. Corporal Muna, District 2 Community Policing Team. Hopefully everybody had a nice new year. For stats so far this month in Mililani area, not including Mauka, assaults 2, burglaries 4, UEMVs, which are unauthorized entry in a motor vehicle, basically vehicle break-ins, 3, robberies 0, thefts 10, and auto thefts 5. Just a side note, I don't know if you might have heard, but regarding auto thefts, it seems like there was a trend back in 2021 about people stealing Kias. It became a thing, I guess, after TikTok. It kind of showed that there was an anti-theft device that was either faulty or not in place, what have you. Unfortunately, after a few years, that trend came over here, so they do seem to be targeting a lot of Kias. If you yourself have one or you know anybody with them, please just try and take that extra precaution to maybe park in a safe place, get a dash cam, lock it up, don't leave anything of value to draw them in the first place. And for any other further statistics, please visit honolulupd.org. Not only do they have the crime mapping website I always refer to, but they have that new feature, that HPD data dashboard. It gives you a whole bunch of new statistics that they didn't normally offer. For safety tips, I actually brought some handouts. Please feel free to help yourself. Mililani is actually, out of the 3 sectors that we have, Mililani is really good for neighborhood security watch. Neighborhood security watches, we have quite a few, more than the other sectors. So if you've heard of it, if you want to start one in your area, you don't have one yet, this explains how to get started. But basically, I know I do these meetings, but Officer Tim Inuma is the Mililani Community Policing Officer. Just contact us at the office. See if anybody in your neighborhood is also interested. Round up the troops. We'll come down. We'll give you guys the startup meeting. And then if you guys like what you hear, we can go from there. We can meet, provide current safety tips that are tailored specifically to your area, things of that sort. And then with burglaries in the area, I also brought some residential security tips. Those are also available over there. So please grab one on the way. And are there any questions? I'm going to put this down before I start writing. I'll take questions.
Hey, members, any questions for Corporal Muna? Member Dow.
What's the rule on drones? I live in Kipapa Gulch and this drone came down from Coal Ridge and it's flying right over our house. And first we thought it was a bee and we looked up and it sat there about 20 feet in the air in my backyard, just hovering for like 2 minutes, just watching us. And we ran around to the front to see if we got a better view, and then it took off and went back up. But it's kind of frustrating. It's that like invasion of privacy?
Yeah.
or-
No, yeah, absolutely. There are actually a few laws that govern drones. I think one is also like you can't take off over a beach or things like that. But for what you're talking about too, invasion of privacy absolutely is one of them. I'm not too sure exactly what they would do to try and trace down who's operating the drone, but absolutely call. If it's something that's floating around, like you could start seeing into people's windows or getting close to that area, please just call 911 and hopefully the officer can kind of meet with people, try and figure something out. Maybe someone in the area knows, oh, so-and-so just, bought the drone. We saw him in the backyard operating it. So you never know. There might be some clue that can lead him to whoever's flying it. So please call for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions for HPD? Listen, go ahead.
Yeah, this is more of an announcement. We were talking earlier tonight about, I said last year that I came up with an idea of having an information residence box for concerns in our district. And I'm ready to move forward on that. And we were just talking about, I'm going to purchase the box when they are ready, and we're going to have it at Miliani Shopping Center. And we're going to move forward on it this year, the starting of the year. And he'll let us know what's happening.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, I'm going to see Officer Inuma tomorrow. Again, he is the Melemanu community policing officer. So I'll have him, I got your number before the meeting started. I have your number. So I'll have him contact you tomorrow, and whatever you guys decide to go from there, I'm sure you guys can figure it out. Yeah.
Any other questions, members, for HPD? None. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you much, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Is there a representative from? Oh, sorry. Excuse me, Corporal. Corporal, there's a member of the public who has a question for you. Apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you. My question to you is on e-bikes. The laws and is there an age limit? I live in the community of Magapipi Street and Lanikuhana. I also witnessed several young individuals, maybe elementary school age, doing wheelies, causing traffic jams. People are scared to walk down the street with their dogs or babies because they are taking over the road. As far as calling HPD, we know you're overwhelmed with so many other things, but what is the law regarding e-bikes? They just seem to be around. Is there permitting? Is there schooling? Is there something that the public can do because they're becoming dangerous?
Ma'am, for the record, could you provide the
Oh,
name?
my name is Ann Smith.
Thank you.
Also, I have another question on the lighting at the district park. Are the bathrooms at our community parks? The one at Makapipi Street and Lanikuhana, it's very dark. We have homeless and drug dealers that go there. And I live in that community, so I'm concerned. What can I do about that? And also, Antonio is our new security guard at the Safeway Shopping Center where Longs has left. I want to congratulate Antonio for keeping our shopping center safe. So he's the new security guard there. Please welcome him to the neighborhood. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, so e-bikes, I'm glad you brought that up because that is a big concern, not just with what you mentioned, but it's been ongoing. In community policing, we've actually been trying to work with what we can to address these e-bikes because there are a lot of juveniles that are operating it. So what we've been doing, so let me address the law first. I believe there is a section that basically says under 15, you're not allowed to ride an e-bike. That being said, it seems like it's a law that's not completely finished yet. I think they're working on a bill to try and make it more definable where we can start citing, addressing, what have you. In lieu of that, what we've been doing with the team is actually, we had a meeting with all the Miliani schools. Miliani schools, I think a middle school was in there as well. The middle school was in there as well. But basically, we're trying to work on getting a notice out, like a standardized notice so we can bring it to the schools. They can pass it out to the parents. Some of the parents might not know. Hopefully that'll at least influence a little bit less of the e-bikes that you will see around there. For the ones that are really hazardous, if they're cutting in and out of traffic and they could get hurt, somebody else could get into an accident, that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter what they're riding, it's dangerous. So please call 911 if you ever see anything like that and we can address it right away before anybody gets hurt or killed. For the park, our team actually does sometimes work night shifts just to specifically address city and county parks, especially during after hours. A lot of the parks have park closure hours. So I'll add that to the list of the parks we could check after 10 p.m., especially if there's suspicious or illegal drug activity. We can add that. We do check a lot of the Milani parks, and then after that, we go all the way down to North Shore and we check all those beach parks as well. If they do go unchecked or unmonitored, it does tend to flare up. So I'm glad you brought that to my attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public with questions for HPD, please?
Hi, my name is Jenny Wolf, and I live up in on Hikua Street off of Kipapa. And the last 2 years, there has been this huge trailer that has been parked on Kipapa right after the XL Church. Okay. In 2022, I called HPD and they had to send officers out twice to get this guy to move his trailer. At that time, he was parked there with no motorized vehicle attached to his trailer. He brought the big gray one in first, then he brought a half-size trailer that parked right behind the gray trailer. So at that time, when they finally got him to move it out, he never came back. Then in 2023, which is last year, okay, he came back again and he parked just the gray trailer, but he had a motorized vehicle attached. But because I didn't know of any other law where I could call the police on him, I contacted Mary Smart and she called HPD. And I guess they tagged him because Mary said there was a law that says that trailers like that were over 20 feet long couldn't be parked on a public street for more than 4 hours at a time. Okay, he moved his trailer and he moved it down to where I live. And then he's every few days and not every 4 hours, he started moving his trailer further and further up Kipapa. Now, I do know this guy lives up in that neighborhood because I walk my dog and I've happened to see his truck and noted his license plate number, and I compared it to the pictures I took of the license plate, okay? And also, he lives on at 95-1109 Lalai Street. And I found his name through property tax record, and the owner is a Kurt Pratt. And he also has a small trailer parked in his front yard. And I don't know if that's a violation, HOA violation or not, or city and county violation. But I think that was this half-size trailer that was parked in 2022 behind the big long gray trailer. So my husband suspects that maybe he's carrying illegal fireworks. We don't know, and I don't know if HPD has ever inspected his trailer or what, but I'm just worried that if he comes back again this year, because it's funny that he comes in early November and leaves like the day before New Year's, kind of suspicious, okay? And my husband did say New Year's Eve when he looked out the back window and we can see the ridge line. And he said there was so much aerial fireworks. It looked like the fireworks display at the White House on the 4th of July. So, I just hope that HPD can, follow up on this and find out, what in the world is the guy. And even if that small trailer in his yard is illegal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Corporal Muna.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you did all the detective work already. Very little left for us to do except for enforce it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, are you interested? Starting pay is not great, but I think you're good at the job. Yeah, no, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you have the plate?
They're looking for police officers, Go get Corporal Muna's number.
Yeah. HonoluluPD.org, it has all our numbers on there. No, that's great information. All jokes aside, that is great information. As far as searching the trailer, of course, they would need a warrant for something like that and some kind of reason to suspect that as well. But I get what you're saying. As far as addressing the parking, you have all the information, so I'll notify Officer Inuma tomorrow whether he or maybe a patrol officer can go down there. Anything to cite them for, absolutely. If it's something more permanent, like towing, usually would require a little bit more. Like you can tow for expired tags if it's expired, or abandoned vehicle as well. It sounds like he moves it like every other day you mentioned. So it might not qualify for the abandoned vehicle. I mean, it would within the 24 hours, but it takes unfortunately a couple months, if not more, for that city and county division to come out. But it's a start. But we can definitely address it. You have the information, so I'll pass it on and we'll send some officers down there, an officer down there. Thank you. It left before New Year's. Okay. Well, it's information. So, and that brings me to another point. Every single time we do these board meetings, the information you pass on to me doesn't just stop with me. I generate a report that actually goes all the way up to the assistant chief, and it goes via proper channels. So that means my lieutenant sees it, my captain sees it, my major sees it, and everything's tracked with a paper trail. So everything that you mentioned, your concerns, the details, the license plate, I'll make sure I put all that in there as well, and it'll go up to the assistant chief. So it'll be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who have any questions to direct to HPD at this point? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay, is there a representative from Combat Aviation Brigade 25th ID available?
Hi, good evening. I'm online. I'm Lieutenant Ruby Sermons, and I'll be filling in for the usual Major Tankowitz. So I'll start it off with a couple of points. The main one being there is a February job fair. The U.S. Army Garrison Hawaii is holding its next hiring fair on February 20th at the Melemanu Military Reservation Youth Center on HMR. It'll start at 8:30 and end at around 2 p.m. This is, as always, open to the public, and there will be job offers and provisional hiring the day of the job fair. You're welcome to apply online by going to www.himwr.com. You can click on the employment banner to learn of openings and how to apply on there. Walk-ins are extremely welcome, and everyone should bring 2 references as well as proof of ID and social security card, along with a resume and application. There are opportunities in businesses operations like golf, bowling, food services, and other. The CYS will have openings to consider as well. So for those that work in the CYS, there are a variety of benefits such as retirement, access to our recreation facility, discounted childcare, training, and commissary/PX privileges. To carry on, the U.S. Army Garrison also published the training advisory, but only for January. It is accessible online. If you would like to be added to the distribution list, you can call the community concern line at 808-787-1528. We do appreciate your understanding and patience. In January, the Army Hawaii will be continuing training along the East Range area with helicopter training day only on 25 January, blank fire training day only on 26 January. And on Schofield, there will be artillery and mortar training day only on the 27th and 28th of January. So if you'd like to be added to that advisory list, you can email usag.hawaii.conrail@army.mil. I am tracking, we had an RFI from, I think it was November before we broke out for the holidays. There was a question regarding the removal of property and rubbish on the corner of Kamehameha Highway and Waikalani Drive. We did hear back from Garrison Public Affairs, and they did mention that they are aware this area has historically has become a gathering place for abandoned vehicles and rubbish. At this time, all vehicles have been cleared along with the majority of the rubbish, which was cleared by either the city and County of Honolulu or by the Hawaii Department of Transportation. The Army's property starts at the fence line by the bridge and to the west. The property owner from the road to the fence has direct responsibility. So it seems that it's a community effort to keep this area free of rubbish and abandoned items. But that's all I have. If there are any questions for me, I can try my best to answer them. And if not, I will most certainly report them up and make sure that you guys get an answer for next month's meeting.
Thank you, Lieutenant Sermons, and welcome.
Thank you.
Members, are there any questions? Member Dow has a question, and I will open up a screen share regarding that.
Yes.
Yeah, they did a great job at cleaning out that homeless camp at the top of Kipapa Gulch. But down by the bridge, there's an entryway down to the bottom of the gulch to Army property. And there is a gate, and they kept cutting the lock on the gate. And then the Army kept re-securing it, and they finally put a real beefy lock, which was hard to open. And you can see in the picture, I don't know if somebody was locked inside or what, but they must have had a large vehicle and they yanked the gate and completely off. So this is the way it looked last night. I don't know if they could try to go re-secure the gate or what, or if there's
Yeah.
actually something happening at the bottom of the gulch there. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing this up. I just took a screenshot on my device. I'll make sure to add that to the report as well and make sure that that gets seen as soon as possible, just since it is completely unsecured at this point. So I appreciate the image to go along with your concern.
Oh, thank you very much.
Of
Right, I'm
course.
going to stop screen sharing, and I'm going to open it up to other board members. Questions for 25th ID? Mary.
Okay, I'm hearing noises tonight. Is there training going on today? I didn't hear you mention today's date.
Correct. Let's see. It is possible that it may have not been included in my notes, but after today, the only training that's expected to happen will be during the day from the notes that I was given and from what US Garrison has reported. So it is a possibility that they do have training tonight, but going forward the rest of the month, it seems that there will only be day training.
Thank you.
Okay, Lieutenant Sermons, please make sure that Army Garrison does send those dates of training activities and noise issues adjacent to the Miliani area.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we have regular correspondence with Army Garrison.
Yes.
Any other members for 25th ID? Any members of the public? Oh, Anne, I see that you have a question online. Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment for Mary. Mary, I think that's fireworks because there's somebody up above me, which is probably above you, who, in the middle of this rain, and they're doing it like every night. They're setting off some 2 big bombs. Hard to catch when it's only 2 at a time, but I think that's what's going on.
Any other questions for Combat Aviation Brigade 25th ID from the members? Okay, members of the public, any questions for U.S. Army? Seeing none. Thank you so much for your time, Lieutenant Sermons.
Of course. Have a good night. See you guys next month.
Okay, and now we'd like to welcome Kathleen Pahinui of the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Come on down.
Aloha, Happy New Year, board members, board chair. Let's see. No main breaks to report. Happy to report on that. And we have increased the rebate on our toilet. As you recall, we've had a $45 rebate for new toilets, low flush, water sensible labeled. And we've increased it to $100 for a limited time for 30 days. 90 days starting last weekend to April 18th. And you can get more information on our website at boardofwatersupply.com/rebates. The other thing I wanted to report on was the Waipi'o Street 12-inch main project. I know that's kind of out of your district, but I know people go down there all the time. So we're working to install a new 12-inch water main on Waipi'o Street between Akamainui Street and Waikalani Drive. So if you're going down there, please expect you might run into some delays. And contractors' working hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 3:30, except for state holidays. Any questions?
Members, any questions for Kathleen at Board of Water Supply? Seeing none, any members of the public have questions for the Honolulu Board of Water Supply? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kathleen.
Aloha. See you next.
Drive safe. Okay, at this time, we're going to open the agenda up for community concerns. Are there any individuals or community members who would like to report of any events or concerns within the community? All right, seeing none, no one's concerned. Sounds great. No, we have a couple presentations that should address some of those concerns. Yes. Oh, Alex, you have something to share?
Thank you, Trevor, for that. Chair, members of the board, and my neighbors, I'm here once again to introduce myself for a third time. I am born and raised in Mililani. My name is Alexander Kafuna Ozawa, and I'm running for House District 38. I want to open up to any questions if you have. I am so glad to be here with my community tonight. If you want to come up to me after the board and bring up anything you'd like, I'm here to listen, and I can give you my card and you can text me anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Seeing none, are there any other, thank you, Alex. Are there any other candidates at this time who would like to introduce themselves to the neighborhood board? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We're going to move on to the approval of meeting minutes. I'm going to turn this over to Sabrina for the motion.
Everybody should have got the Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023 minutes in their packet this month. You'll notice that I put the questions in there. If you have any corrections or omissions or anything that you want me to change, let me know. I do have one already. Otherwise, I move to approve.
Sorry, you made a motion to approve?
Yeah, I need a second.
Okay, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, are there any abstentions? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, your motion is approved unanimous. Thank you, members. We're going to move on into presentation. I'd like to welcome Maisha Abbott from the Mililani YMCA. She's going to be giving the annual Mililani YMCA 5K Fun Run presentation tonight. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board, as well as the members of the community. My name is Maisha Abbott. I work for the Mililani YMCA. Today, I'm here to present our 4th annual 5K Fun Run. We're looking at having it on Saturday, April 27th. Check-in for the race is at 6:15 a.m. The race will begin at 5:15 a.m. This is a family event and all ages are welcome to run. And on the screen, on the screen, it has our route. It's going to be the same as last year. And we do have a few pictures of the participants that were there last year. Does anybody have any questions?
Members, any questions for Maisha? Yes, Mary.
Okay, will you tell me the check-in time and the race time again?
Oh, 6:15 is check-in. 7:15 is the start of the race.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Maisha, Mililani YMCA? Any members of the public with questions? Yes, what question?
Who can actually run in this race? Anybody or?
Yeah, so we welcome all families, young children. We had student participants from our schools like Mililani Middle School, Hanalani. We have Kupuna that run in the race or walk. So it's open to all members in the community.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I will stop sharing now. Okay. Next up, I'd like to welcome Deputy Director Dexter Kishida from the Hawaii Department of Agriculture, who will be presenting on the coconut rhinoceros beetle infestation in the Mililani and Central Oahu areas. And I'd like to actually make a special thanks to Senator Dela Cruz for arranging this presentation. So thank you, and take it away, Dexter.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chair, Board, and guests. I am actually going to turn my time over to someone much smarter. Keith Weiser, the Deputy Incident Commander for Coconut Rhinoceros Beetle Response in Hawaii, who will talk through a few slides of kind of where Mililani is at and talk a little bit about the coconut rhinoceros beetle. Meanwhile, I will do a show and tell passing around, not a live one, but mounted coconut rhinoceros beetle and the larva. So Keith, please.
Thanks, Dexter, and thanks for the board and everyone attending tonight. It's really great to get this information out in the community. Many of you've probably heard from us before. I've included quite a lot of slides here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, just to show you some of the the devastation. Some of you have probably seen it in your community, but if you haven't noticed it, I'm gonna, go past this slide because it doesn't appear to be working, but there's a lot of trees that are devastated and a lot of trees that are affected. So some of the impacts you can see are trees with V-cut damage, missing fronds, and eventually trees are dying a lot more on Oahu. Can also attack banana, pala, taro, sugarcane, and some other plants, and including some natives as well. So this is the beast that we're looking for. It's being passed around the room for those of you online. It's a large black beetle, about 2 inches. That you won't find very small beetles because once they reach adult size, they stay the same size. And then, of course, they're developing as larvae, as you can see on the right there. And they get quite large. They start out as a few millimeters and get to almost 4 inches long, very beefy, bigger than your thumb. So I'm going to go quickly through some slides, but CRB have spread across Oahu and now more recently to, they were detected last year in Kauai, Big Island, and Maui. So we're doing some operations there, as is Hawaii Department of Agriculture. But almost every place on Oahu has them now, but Mililani is one of the more affected parts of Oahu currently. You may have noticed our traps up around. I'm going to go quickly through some of this, but yeah, trapping efforts are not a control, but they are how we track the populations. And some of the risks are things like breeding material. And if you have a property, some netting on either your trees or your mulch piles might be appropriate. Some of their favorite foods are fan palms, coconut palms, date palms, and royal palms, aside from the other crops I mentioned earlier. And here's some examples of damage, the V-shaped cuts and the boreholes in trees. There's a lot of other things that can cause problems in palms, but if you see these specific ones, CRB is a big risk in Mililani. I'm going to go quickly through a bunch of these, but they breed in compost, chipped material, dead trees, stumps, logs, things like that. So if you have those risks in your neighborhood, if you can do anything to get rid of that material, that'll help the problem in your area. So I'm sorry, I know I'm running low on time. So we have some recommendations on our website, crbhawaii.org, but restricting transport, especially from high population areas like Mililani to low population areas like East Oahu, and especially to other islands. And then if you can stockpile as little of that type of material as you can. Don't use mulch or compost if you have other options, and then spread that material out thin so that it can be grazed by predators. We have some recommendations of potential treatments on our website, and there are some chemical treatments of palms and physical treatments if you choose to do those. I have some information on pesticides. If anybody's interested in that, you can talk to me afterwards or give us a call. And we have some guidelines about inspecting and reporting anything that you see. Try not to transport potentially infested material, manage the decomposing plant matter on your property, and spread the word to your neighbors. We have a pretty hefty outreach component for us, and here's the information on how to follow us or to reach our website or contact us. So thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
I'm sure there are many questions. I see Emil's hand is up online, and actually a lot of this presentation came off from a presentation previously provided by Senator Dela Cruz's office, in which our own member Emil Sverchina, who's online right now, mentioned that he personally had some CRB issues. So Emil, take it away with your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I called the number several times and there's absolutely no response. So I know in regards to the rapid responding, I mean, I would question that, number one. Number two, what if the palm is infected already? Is it basically destined to die, or is there any way to save that tree? You know, I do it myself. I climb the tree and, you know, it's kind of high and we've mechanically removed the beetle, and usually the holes they made are not reinfected, but the palm tree doesn't look like it's gonna live any longer. And also I would like to find out if there is any chance. The main question I have is, can we save the palm tree, or are we just waiting for the top of the palm tree to fall down and maybe cause some property damage? I yield.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Regarding the fate of your tree, if you see damage, if the populations can be suppressed locally in your area, not just on your property, but in your whole neighborhood, we have seen trees recover. We saw that at the initially identified site at Mamala Bay Golf Course. We pulled thousands of beetles out there. They got rid of all the breeding material, and there's a strict green waste program on Joint Base now, and all those trees recovered and none of them died from CRB. It was free of CRB for a couple of years. But in a lot of areas like Miliani and Kunia, there's so much breeding material and mulch and compost around, and dead trees, even in the wild areas, it's really hard to get that kind of control. So if those populations are high, there's a good chance that your tree will die. Things that you can do aside from the green waste management is try to put netting on your trees. That's not perfect, but it can help. Pesticide treatments have to be at a sort of neighborhood scale, but those can help with the populations as well. But in some cases, unfortunately, the tree is going to die and there's not very much that you can do to save an individual tree.
Okay, thank you.
And regarding the call to our, I guess there's a few numbers you can call. There's the 643 pest line, and then there's a direct number to our outreach phone. So all the messages that we receive, we try to respond to. Right now, it goes straight to voicemail. You have to leave a message, and then we get the information and then contact that person back. So we don't do treatments anywhere except around ports on Oahu now, because largely the whole island is infested, so we don't have the capacity to treat every area. But we can give you guidance on the things you can do for management, or if you have questions about, how you can best respond in your situation.
So may I follow up just quickly? So what about those pheromone traps? I mean, are they available for general public, or do you just place them where you decide to place them?
Yeah, on Oahu, we try to keep them about 4 per square mile, and we mainly use those to track how high populations are on different parts of the island, to know where the risks are for transporting them off island and around to less infested areas. They're not great at suppressing populations. They catch less than 11%, probably closer to like 1 to 5% of the beetles out there. So they're a pretty economical tool for tracking populations, but they're not going to get rid of the beetles in your area. So we don't provide them to public, but you can go and buy those if you want to have them on your property. If you put a whole bunch of them, they may get a significant proportion, but I don't think it's the most efficient way, but they're probably about $30 a piece, and then the lures are $5 or $7 a piece. So just to give you an idea of costs, and I can give you some vendors if you're interested in buying any for yourself or your neighborhood.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? I see Elise has a question, Les, and then Mike. So go ahead, Elise.
My cats brought one home, so I have them in my yard, I guess. And then I went online to see if I could report it, and apparently, if you live in Oahu, you're not really taking any calls. You're more interested in the other islands right now. So we're on our own, basically, in dealing with this.
As far as doing treatments, you are pretty much on your own on Oahu, and we don't collect data on people who found. So many people find them that that's an enormous amount of data. But if you want advice on, hey, you know what, I went and talked to an arborist and they quoted me this price and we're going to do this treatment, or and we can tell you if we think that's going to be effective or what you should expect results wise, or if you want to do your own treatments with netting, or, if you want to know what your highest risks in your yard are and send some photos, we can help you with that kind of thing. Basically, we can give you advice, but we can't come out and do anything.
You've mentioned netting a couple of times. What kind of netting is this?
It's a gill netting that is not legal to use in the oceans here, but you can use it on the land. And yeah, it's a monofilament. There's a few different sizes. So we use primarily the number 4 is what they designate as the diameter. Number 4, 1-inch stretched whole size gill netting. And yeah, so I can, again, with vendors, I can help you out with that if you're interested in buying any for
Okay, thank you.
or your neighbors.
What, have you guys looked into what types of birds eat this kind of I was thinking, just looking at the worms in the bottom, that could make a pretty good meal for a nest of birds.
Yeah.
I was just curious, being that I was thinking birds would probably be the first line of defense to eat them all up out there. Have you guys ever looked into that to see what types of birds are eating them up? I'm thinking like that might be to save a whole lot of money and have these birds eat them up, man.
Yeah, there's several different predators, primarily of the larvae, because they're more nutritious and softer, and the adults are kind of hard to eat. But chickens, pigs, mongoose, cattle egrets, all will eat the larvae. And it can help. And one thing you can do to help is the material that they're breeding in, that compost mulch soil type material. If you can spread it out thin enough that a chicken can scratch through it, they'll get some of them. But there are farms that have plenty of chickens and CRB, and they don't take care of the problem. They just make the problem a little bit less. So it's part of management, but it's not going to solve it.
That's good to know, but I don't know if anybody really thought about like birds eating them up, man, because it looks like a real good meal, for a bunch of wild birds,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, Michael.
Sorry, that's almost the same question he was asking. What natural predators are they to the coconut beetle?
Yeah, the ones that I just mentioned, unfortunately, most of those are not native to Hawaii. There's nothing really native to Hawaii that's a predator of it. And then related there, people talk about biocontrols sometimes, and most of those biocontrols are microbial. So things like fungus and viruses, but those are not available widely or not importable in anytime soon in Hawaii. So those are things that we're interested in and we're talking about and looking at, but right now we don't have anything available like that.
Well, what about there was another breed of coconut tree in Indonesia. They're talking about maybe bringing it out here that the coconut beetle doesn't eat.
It probably has some preferences, but I haven't seen any untouched trees in the middle of, so I think we just have to pull some over here, test them and see. The unfortunate part is we have our own genetics of coconuts here, some of them historic that we don't want to disappear either, and the native lolu palms, that's not going to help with that, but for decorative purposes and production, that could be an answer. Yeah.
Members,
Okay.
any other
Thank you.
questions for DOA? Yes, Marilyn.
I just wondered about, I had 2 questions. I think it was just a short time ago that we were read in the news that this CRB was here, and now they're spread all over the island. How did that happen? I mean, I realize your resources are limited, but it just seems like an awfully fast invasion of the whole island. And secondly, my question is, we have a whole bunch of people spreading whatever it is that might be toxic in the neighborhood. I think that's kind of a concern about animals and children getting into it or touching it or being affected by it. Thank you.
Great question. So CRB was first detected on Oahu in 2013. So it did take a few years to spread up here to Mililani, but by the time it got to Mililani, it was already spreading like wildfire. We think primarily from people moving it in compost, mulch, and possibly trees and things like that around the island. So once the populations got high enough that it started to spread, it spread quite quickly. So we had probably about 5 years where almost nobody saw any of the impacts of CRB. And then, in the last 5 years, it's really ramped up a lot. So that's probably why that perception, once it hit Mililani, it was already starting to get everywhere on Oahu. And then regarding pesticide applications, it's always a balance. How much damage does the pesticide going to do to an environment versus how much damage is the pest going to do to the environment. And you've got to, as a community, weigh your options, decide what works for you. All the treatments that the CRB response has done have been injections, primarily injections into trees. So all the pesticide is contained inside of the tree. That doesn't have, so as far as like pets and dogs and children, they'd have to, get to the material inside of the tree to be affected by it. So we trim off fruits and flowers to reduce the impacts to pollinators and make sure people aren't eating those fruits. But yeah, it's important to look at your site and what the risks are before you do any kind of application.
Other questions, Darsha?
I thought I saw last year a study about using salt for the control of coconut rhinoceros beetle. And I was wondering if that was being looked at more, or if it needed more research, or if it was being looked at as a feasible option for controlling the population.
Yeah, that research was done at UH, and Mike Melzer looked at a bunch of different salts, magnesium chloride, sodium chloride, calcium chloride, all those. So originally it was found that some of the material that had seawater in it from biosolids processing CRB couldn't infest. And so we looked at how salty does it have to be to actually stop them. One of the issues with using salt broadly is if you get too much salt concentration in your soil, you can't grow plants anymore. So it's going to kill trees and things like that. So if you're, and also anytime you use a chemical to kill insects, that becomes a pesticide in a legal sense. So those are the main reasons why salt hasn't been used more broadly. But one really great application is if you live in a coastal zone that has natural inundation, and this is used for some of the mangrove removals. If they chip that mangrove and put it in the places where the sea comes up and covers that material periodically, that's a pretty good protection, and it's sort of a natural thing. But you shouldn't just go throw waste into the ocean, because that's not legal in a lot of cases either. So.
Any other questions from board members? Alex? Sabrina, then Alex.
This board has received several complaints from our members over the years that they've reached out to you and they've received either notice that they have to pay for their own treatment or that you guys aren't going to address it. Do you have any data showing how much you guys have been effective over the years in combating this, or in the cases that you have addressed throughout the island?
I guess it depends what kind of measures you use. So we've trapped tens of thousands of beetles. We've removed many tons of infested material, but unfortunately the scope of the problem is so large that our funding really can't tackle the whole problem. Also, the tools that are out there are not sufficient for eradication at the stage that it is in Oahu when we came into the problem. So I think we were kind of with the tools and funding that we had initially, an eradication was really pretty much impossible. So and with the scope that it is on Oahu, we also don't have the tools or the resources to help out most residents. So we're restricted primarily to just ports, and even that's a big job for us. So for the common, residents like yours, we just don't have the funding to tackle that scope of help.
So now that it's spread to the outer islands, do you still not have the funding or the ability to control it on the outer islands?
Well, we have a lot of partners on other islands. So I know HDOA has been doing just this week out on Kauai. They were doing some treatments in conjunction with University of Hawaii. We've been working with the invasive species committees on each of the islands to do the delimiting and help on treatments. We're not legally approved to do pesticide treatments off of Oahu currently, but we're working on that. So we've been involved in the emergency responses on other islands, and we're trying to do eradications where possible. And we think that Big Island and Maui are potentially eradicated if the problem is the size that we think it is, in that it's only one infested area currently.
Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I feel like obviously a lot of people might be disappointed to hear that they were first detected in 2013, and now it's 2024 and it's grown to a huge problem. Obviously, that was a different administration back then, but moving forward, is there anything that we see starting to be a problem now that we could prevent from being a problem 10 years from now?
You mean aside from coconut rhinoceros
Yeah,
beetle?
other invasive.
I think this is a Dexter question because I only do coconut rhinoceros beetle,
Sure thing.
which is plenty.
Right now, we don't have, we have a few things. On Hawaii Island, we have a Queensland longhorn beetle that is attacking our cacao trees and really any tree. Of course, Mililani, one of the first areas to deal with little fire ants. It's getting right now pretty far spread on the windward side. So communities like Mililani did are being kind of spun up to help combat little fire ants. Hopefully it stays beyond our doorstep. Things like the red imported fire ant, which we see actually in just recently a news article on the continental US, it moving a little further west. It's sort of the red imported fire ant is kind of like in the Indiana Jones movie where they come out of the mound and kind of attack. And so those are definitely things that we need to keep at bay. But there's also other types of viruses and plant diseases that we definitely need to keep out. And so one of the things that I think one of the board members mentioned, like, what do we do? Or a couple of folks, what do we do? The legislature this year is going to have quite a few pieces of legislation around biosecurity. And so that's going to be kind of probably the header, but to combat things like little fire ants, coconut rhinoceros beetles, coqui frogs, and all of those, and protect us from all of those things at the doorstep so they don't enter Hawaii. And so maybe one recommendation, if I can so humbly recommend to the board, is to do a joint testimony when these types of legislation pop up to support both the funding and the implementation of these kinds of programs to help mitigate and control things like CRB. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions for the Department of Agriculture? Actually, I have a few questions, if I may. Earlier, you said that CRB was identified on Oahu in 2013, and later you said in Mililani the last 5 years. When did you start seeing it really in Mililani?
So in most areas, what sometimes we'll have a first find, and then we might have nothing for a couple of years. And because of the efficiency of our traps, usually we've got to get maybe 50 or 100 in the area before the trap actually starts to catch beetles. So we don't have an exact answer on that. I'd have to look on my records to see when we started to get regular finds. But I believe it was 2017, probably when we started to get regular fines in Mililani.
That's good. That's a good estimate. I'm not looking for a specific date. And in a follow-up, actually, in your presentation, you mentioned that Mililani is a high populated area multiple times. Is it the highest of this island?
I think Kunia is probably the highest populations as far as our trapping data shows. But Kunia, Pearl City, Peninsula area, Mililani, and Waianae, Nanakuli kind of area. Those are probably the big four, and depending on the month, they kind of vie for who's got the biggest number of fines. I haven't calculated it in fines per land area, but just raw number of fines. Those are kind of the big four.
Okay, thank you. And we've all here have experienced the little fire ant situation. Gosh, I think that was a decade ago. We all went out with our peanut butter. So now we're trying to mitigate our own properties are infested with CRB, right? And you're saying it's a surrounding area, surrounding neighborhood issues. So we could eradicate what we find on our properties, but maybe our neighbor's yard, down the street, not so much, and we have to co together as a neighborhood. How else can we do that? Do we just go through the mulch and go through our own soils and look for those V-shaped cuts like you said? And how else, what other solutions are going to be proposed so that the state can help communities like ours, Pearl City and Cunha?
Yeah, there's a lot of answers there, and I probably don't have time for all of them, but I think because you're dealing with you've got homeowners associations and boards like this that can have joint community action. Some things that we talked about in the presentation, like reducing the amount of potential breeding material that's out there. If you say, oh, well, our neighborhood, you're not allowed to have, mulch piles above this size around us. Those kinds of things could go a long way. And then if treatments are coordinated, I know that's really difficult because not everybody's going to be on the same page there, but community-wide treatments are something that could work there too. A broad scale, if there's local green waste management, whether that's private or at the level of this board or even Department of Agriculture level, the local processing is probably a good idea, both to control things like the beetles and to prevent the spread of things to or out of this area in the future for invasive species. Those are all some good ideas, I think.
Thank you so much. I'm going to just
Yep.
open it up to Dexter, unless you have. Are there any other questions from the members of the public? Well, I know that we've spent over 30 minutes on this very important issue in our community. I just wanted to give a moment for anyone else. Seeing none.
Thank you very much. Please reach out if we can come back and have further this conversation. And we'll definitely be sharing as additional tools are developed. Really green waste management. The other thing is partnering with other orgs. We just did a partnership with the City and County of Honolulu and Royal Palm Drive, for example. So what came to mind as you were all talking with the Miliani Homeowners Association, if they have contracts that manage palms or things like that around the common areas, we would love to have a conversation with either that contractor or with the homeowners association to help coach them on best techniques to manage and or treat. For example, if you're trimming, can you treat at the same time? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down here. Appreciate it. And thank you to Senator Dela Cruz for setting it up. Okay, we're going to move on to reports of the chairs and the board committees. For chair's report, I have none. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move into partnerships and community outreach. Alex Ozawa?
Thank you, Chair. I have received the login information from the former chair of this committee, and I'm happy to accept any pictures or information for any events in the Miliani community that can be sent to me so it can be posted online. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Community recognition service awards. Josie? Nothing for this month? Okay, but maybe next month? Okay, to be determined. All right, community maintenance and walk audit. Martina?
Hi, yes. So I actually have a report this month. I've been working with Chair Bass and our new NCO Rachel to establish a system for walk audits that can be used by future chair members other than myself, so whoever comes next. And we are continuing to update the walk audit public survey, so members of the community can have access and report their concerns, so it doesn't just have to come from members of the board. And ongoing, I'm going to need to work with Tracy to see what was addressed before I got on. So that's all.
Okay. Planning, zoning, sustainable development, and climate resilience. Trevor?
No report this month.
Transportation. I see that Skylar was online. No longer
online.
is.
I'm still
Oh,
online.
he's still online. Go ahead.
No
Any
report this month, but the only thing is that there will be a folder in every month on the NCO drive for everything that's going to be going on for the CAC, as well as all the upcoming events that they have. It'll be posted within the first week of every single month. So if anybody in the community or anybody on the neighborhood board wants to see what events are coming up, they would have to go to that folder because they don't have anything that's going to be updated for the next month ahead. So I won't be able to present anything, but I will put all the information inside that folder. And if anybody has any questions or things they would like to bring up to the CAC, please go ahead and send me an email. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Skylar. I see Dennis is not here for military affairs and emergency management. So we'll move on to health, houselessness, and human services. Darsha.
Thank you, Chair. So for my report, some resources for our community. So as some of us already know, Achieve Zero, which was our houseless outreach for our area, it shut down at the end of last year, at the end of November. So we now have Kealoha West Oahu, that is the outreach program in our area. And they take care of Region 3, which is Eva Beach, Aiea, Pearl City, Waipahu. And then also Region 5, which is North Shore from Kaena Point to Turtle Bay, as well as us, Mililani, and Wahiawa. For the community, some resources. If you have a concern about a nonviolent houseless related issue, you can always reach out to our core program. It's really good. They have EMTs, they have community outreach workers, as well as supervisors who can come out to the place and meet with somebody. And that number is 808-768-2673. If you do have something that you think is a health emergency or a crime, that's a different pathway. You call 911, and you can always request a crisis intervention officer. They're specially trained to, if somebody has like a behavioral health issue, mental health issue, they are experienced with dealing with those types of crises. So if you see somebody who you're concerned that is having that type of crisis, you can call 911 and request a crisis intervention officer. If there's a crime related to the houseless situation, please also, it's 911. Thank you.
Darsha, what was the name of the organization that's taken over?
Oh, the name of the organization is Kealoha West Oahu Outreach Program.
Kealoha?
Kealoha, Kealahou. They do, they've been doing Region 3 previously, and then when Achieve Zero shut down, they've taken over Region 5, which is North Shore to Kaena Point to Turtle Bay, us in Mililani, and then also Wahiawa. I can get you that phone number afterwards. They have a whole website and everything, but it's also on the website for the houseless resources from the state.
So much, Darsha. We're gonna move on to Parks, Recreation, and Central Oahu Regional Park. Sabrina.
No report, but I do have a question. What was the name of the park again that has the light?
All right, Michael, you have a comment on this committee item?
Yeah, the Patsy Team Inc. Park on Monday, the 29th, they have a park meeting. Anybody's invited. The public's invited. It's at 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. It's by the pool, the manager's office, there's office right next to it. And anybody can come with any type of complaints about the park or suggestions. 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. It would be good too if the city council members in the area could come because there's questions on park fees. It's only park, that park and the soccer park is where they charge fees, and some of them are like $1,000 for an event. And the other parks in the on Oahu don't do that. It'd be good if the city council members could come.
And that's January 29th, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Central Oahu Regional Park. By the pool, thank you. All right, and last but not least, Marilyn, Education.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have this copy of the Central Oahu Voice, and the headline says, "State recognizes Mililani High School." And we should be very proud of this school because they were recognized as one of the first Hawaii schools of democracy. And they were recognized for comprehensive social studies, pioneering advanced placement, African American studies program, and offering a robust range of activities that promote community engagement and civic responsibility, as well as giving a place for the neighborhood board to meet. So we're proud of that. Aloha Bash was held on January 20th to raise money for mental health, and that's another community type assistance that I think is very good to see our school do. If you have nothing to do on January 26th, it's the opening day for Hairspray, the musical that's being presented by Miliani High School's Performing Arts Learning Center. There are several days, but it goes through the 26th to February 3rd, and it's $10 a ticket. And you can go to Show Tix for You and get tickets. And then Community Work Day, they're looking for people to help. And if you'd like to help out with that, you can contact the school. The last thing I had from Mililani High School was the teachers, staff of the quarter. They're looking for donations to help with the awards for these teachers of the quarter. So hopefully if you can help out, that would be nice. And I've got another report from Kipapa School from Jake Kardash, who's very very faithful in his reporting. The following clubs will be starting this quarter: Climbing Club, learning how to use the climbing wall; the Sea Perch, underwater robotics, which is pretty surprising and amazing; drama, and their students are currently auditioning for a part in the musical in April. But the big thing they're having is a magic show fundraiser, and that's Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So the fourth grade teachers need your help, because they're planning to take their students to the Big Island, and all the proceeds will go towards student expenses. And then the last report I received from one of the schools is from Principal Duwache at Kipapa Elementary. And they are focusing on their 3 buckets with care, systems of support, and closing their achievement gap. And so they're very conscientious, taking care of the people, students, and the families, looking at chronic absenteeism, working with families to try to get students to school. And I think they do have a concerning rate of absenteeism, and closing the achievement gap, which happened basically as the pandemic went on. So they're doing a good job over at Kipapa too. And that's all I have to report.
Thanks so much, Marilyn. Les, you have a.
I just want to add something a little bit. It's important with the homeless.
Is this for education committee?
It's just I just learned that the houselessness, the point in time count for the federal mandated census account from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the homeless in Hawaii was done on Tuesday, and the numbers should be coming out later on this week. So something to keep an eye out for all the board members.
Thank you. Any other questions directed to Marilyn for education? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to elected officials. And I see that Nestor Garcia is here representing Congressman Case. Members online, you'll note that Nestor put in a link in the chat, which provides Congressman Case's reports, as well as that report will be uploaded in our Google Drive. Take it away, Nestor.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and those are in the audience, especially those that are doing this virtually. Yeah, so Nestor Garcia for Congressman Ed Case. I'm his communications director. So I haven't been with your board, Madam Chair, since October, so there's been a lot of catching up here. In the chat, yes, I did drop in a link to his end of the year report for 2023. And I also in the chat dropped a link to what was his opening remarks that he shared at each of the 5 so-called talk stories that he held in the first week of January, one of which was held actually at Miliani Mauka Elementary School. So this link to a video of his opening remarks is typical of his opening remarks for each of those 5 talk stories in the first week of January. So some other things I wanted to catch up with you since I last came before your board, Madam Chair, in October. The congressman also announced his nominations. These are young people that he sent to each of the 4 service academies for their consideration. And 2 young people, young persons are from Mililani. I'm going to drop the names and the service academies to which they were nominated of 2 by the congressman, one of which is, let's see here, West Point United States Military Academy, Tyler Ishikawa of Mililani. And for the United States Naval Academy, Alexia Kramer. So 2 young people from Mililani. I'm going to put their names and their service academy to which they were nominated to in the chat as well later, Madam Chair. He also announced in December the winners of his Congressional App Challenge. This is his annual competition open to middle school and high school students who reside in his 1st congressional district. And once again, actually, I guess this is for the 3rd year in a row, first place went to a student with the Dream House Eva Charter School. 3rd year in a row that this school has placed someone in first place in this competition. So congratulations to the young woman that won. Let's see what else. As you know, Congress is still trying to work out an agreement for the federal fiscal year 2024, which we're still in the midst of, budget. And so we were able to dodge a potential partial government shutdown last week. So we moved some would say kicked the can, but we moved the deadline again to March 1st. There's a second deadline of March 8th to try and get the 12 appropriations measures for fiscal year 24 settled, because we're still supposed to be we're supposed to be working on fiscal year 2025, but Congress moves when it does. So we're standing by to see what happens on March 1st. Hey, Madam Chair, that's it for now. Taking any questions from the board and from members of the audience.
Thank you, Nestor. Members, are there any questions for Congressman Case's office? Members of the audience, any questions for Congressman Case's office? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much, Nestor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're gonna actually, Tony Schwartz is here from representing the governor's office. Thank you for being here, Tony.
My name is Tony Schwartz. I'm here representing the Office of the Governor. Thank you, Chair and board members, for having me. Did want to express the governor did do his second State of the State address. Some of you may have seen it. If not, you can find it on their webpage. But he mostly, his biggest priority is Maui still, the recovery of Maui and affordable housing. But his affordable housing measures and other bills that he says he wants to pass isn't just for Maui, it's for the whole state. So he further pledged to sign into law any bill to help move short-term rentals and vacation investments owned by non-residents into the local housing market to increase supply and bring down prices for Hawaii families as a whole. He has a House Hawaii's Ohana plan to provide exemptions from capital gains, conveyances, and general excise taxes to owners of short-term rentals who sell to a local resident or who convert a home to a long-term rental for local residents. This will increase supply and bring down prices for local families. He also is proposing a child independent tax credit totaling up to $115 million annually for Hawaii families. And to help alleviate homelessness in our neighborhoods, he's proposing to build as many as 20 new Hale communities across the state to reduce homelessness by 50% by 2026. Governor also mentioned the supplemental budget for fiscal year 2025, placing a huge emphasis on infrastructure and housing with requests totaling $373 million. This continues to be one of his top priorities. He's also funding priorities set aside he's put aside money for up to $600 million in the budget for Maui's recovery costs that will continue into 2027. He also mentioned the phase 1 of the Green Affordability Plan, which is in its first year, providing $104 million in direct income tax relief to Hawaii's ALICE families, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. Some 44% of all families in our state are ALICE families. The teacher shortage was slashed by more than 50% in a single year after successful negotiations with a new 4-year contract with the Hawaii State Teachers Association and the 13,500 teachers it represents, and some 10,800 new units of low-income housing for struggling families were immediately approved under the Emergency Proclamation on Housing. The Build Beyond Barriers Working Group has also begun to reform housing bureaucracy and has approved or accelerated multiple new projects that will bring thousands of homes to teachers, nurses, firefighters, and working families across the state in the coming years. And he mentioned, you may have heard him mention the Maui Recovery Fund, which was created in November. The fund has $175 million, and it will be towards rapidly providing funds to families who lost loved ones or who suffered serious injuries in the fires. That program is set to start in March. In conjunction with the County of Maui, a difficult decision was made to reopen West Maui to tourism, with the exception of Lahaina. As a result, just 2 weeks ago, the Council on Revenues readjusted its economic projection up to 4% growth from the previously projected 4.3% growth. This adds about $500 million of revenue to our state. And then he also mentioned the state's first medical respite, Kauhale Lama Ola, was open for a 6-month pilot project. The lessons learned from that will be used towards additional kauhales that will be opened around the state using $33 million appropriated by state lawmakers at the governor's request. And then finally, he also mentioned the gun buyback program that was held on Oahu that removed some 500 firearms, including some very illegal firearms, from the streets, and more are planned this year. That's what I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Tony. Members, are there any questions? Tony can represent on behalf of the governor's office. Les.
The governor was saying that 52% of all short-term rentals are owned by non-residents, huh?
That's the belief, yes.
Yeah. So I was wondering, did he have any ideas about dealing with the realtors that are marketing to like outside mostly rich people coming in and buying up property, driving up the costs of unaffordable housing for the families and residents of Hawaii? Is he planning on looking into the realtors and to stop them from going through the same cycle of driving up housing in Hawaii by marketing to outside rich sources, whether it's a Mark Zuckerberg getting 1,800 acres or some of the rich entities that come in and buy up all the property and making unaffordable housing for the locals and the residents? I would think that he probably would look into that along with his other plans that are so far pretty good. I'm glad this statistic, 52% of short-term rentals by non-residents, is a shocking number, really. And he's right, it's contributing to unaffordable housing and homelessness in Hawaii. So I'm glad he's taking this step, but there's so much more he can do if he goes to the realtors too. A lot of these realtors.
Thank you. I'll bring your suggestion to him. That's
Thank
a
you.
good question.
Okay, I see that Anne Freed has her hand up, and then that'll be followed by Mary. I'm mindful of time, so let's keep the questions short and brief. Go ahead, Anne.
I'll be short because it's not a question. So I just want to say that I am rarely moved by political speeches these days, but I was moved to tears by the governor's State of the State address. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch because not only does he tackle the scope with definitely some very controversial issues, with the very complex problems that are affecting our state, but the heart and the love that this man has for our people just came across to me loud and clear. So I just want you to pass that on, Tracy. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that he's there. I really think we have the right guy for this difficult job that is ahead of us. right now. So that was it. Thanks.
Thanks, I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Tony. Mary.
Okay, this is about Maui housing. So my family had gone through Katrina in New Orleans, and FEMA provided trailers, you know, to help these people. Is FEMA doing anything for people in our state to provide temporary housing? Or are we kind of too far away?
So there was one thing I failed to mention. The state is partnering with FEMA to try to find a way to urge owners of short-term rentals on Maui to become part of the $500 million Maui interim housing plan. Any owners who want to step up and help house Maui wildfire survivors are supposed to contact FEMA through the, and it's an email address, and I'll read it off, mauihousing2024@fema.dhs.gov.
Okay, but they're not going to bring trailers.
I don't know about trailers, but I'll ask.
Okay, because that's what they did for New Orleans. Thank you.
Any other questions for the governor's office? Any questions from the members of the public? Seeing none, thank you so much for your time, Tony. Okay, Tracy's here representing the mayor's office. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Tracy Kubota, Mayor Blangiardi's representative. Well, January is whizzing by, but we do have a newsletter that Mayor Blangiardi had provided with some updates and wishing everybody a happy new year. Review of 2023 with some facts and figures. So please check it out because it's interesting stuff that city accomplished and you guys might be interested to see. Announced the dog park in Salt Lake and big award for the city, but I'll let you read to find out what that is just so that you can go figure out. Okay, so just a follow up from last year. One thing, I know it was the bus stop shelter installation and we had kind of gotten back, but wanted to read it for the record that the concern was that they wanted a Transportation Mobility Division staff wanted to confirm that a bus shelter will be installed at the bus stop in Milani Vista Senior Complex. And they wanted to know timing of the shelter installation. So the response from Department of Transportation Services says a field investigation by staff on December 6, 2023 discovered the existing concrete sidewalk damaged to the extent of not being in proper condition to install a bus stop shelter on the surface. So having said that, they will they're currently in design phase of repairing the concrete sidewalk and to provide a more expansive area to conform with the ADA requirements. And then upon completion of that new concrete sidewalk construction, a new bus stop shelter will be constructed. Final installation of a new bus stop shelter will be estimated to be completed by the end of May of this year and subject to availability of funds. Okay, so wanted to just make sure that we responded to that publicly. And I'll take any other questions back for next month.
Questions for Tracy for the mayor's office. Mary.
No, I've never been a proponent of rail, but so I look at the trains going by and they look very empty. I'm just wondering how much we're losing or, you know, we're subsidizing rail travel because the numbers look very low. Do you have numbers? I last time you gave the numbers of students.
Okay.
But
I know the subsidy.
Yeah, how much are we losing? That's really what I'm worried about. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the mayor's office? Questions from the public? Seeing none, thank you so much, Tracy.
Hey, thanks everybody.
See you next month. Up next, Jamie from Councilmember Val Kimono's office. Welcome, Jamie.
Good evening, Chair Bass, members of the Neighborhood Board. Jamie Shadell from Councilmember Val Okimoto's office. City Council met today, passed two bills on third reading that are going to Mayor Blangiardi's desk. Bill 40, it's the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund that was set up a couple of years ago. It was funded and the funds lapse. It's an initiative of Councilmember Tyler Dos Santos Tam to help provide some relief to small businesses being affected by the rail construction in the Dillingham corridor. Also, Bill 61 relating to exceptional trees. Council also passed a charter amendment, which takes, I believe, 0.5% of the property tax revenues and allocates it to a climate resiliency fund. So that'll be a good funding mechanism, hopefully in the future, for the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. That's a mouthful. I'm going to stand on the written report pending any questions.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for Jamie from Councilmember Balakimoto's office? All right.
Okay, I don't know if you can answer this. So we pay our property taxes to the county. And I understand the state might want to be getting some property taxes. Did I mishear that? I know I probably should have asked the governor's representative, but I didn't think of it until you got up. Because I'm paying to the county and to the state. I think it's the TAT. I was just wondering if I'm going to be paying property taxes to state and to county. You haven't heard anything?
I haven't heard anything
Okay.
about the state.
I might have misheard that. Okay.
The only new fee that I heard from the governor's office was that tourist fee.
Tourist fee. That's what we need. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for City Council Member Balakimoto's office? Done. Thank you, Jamie. All right, I see that Kelly Anaya is online from representing Council Member Matt Wire's office. Hi, Kelly.
Aloha, Chair. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Aloha, Chair and members of the board. Kelly Anaya from Councilmember Matt Wire's office. We just had a couple updates, legislative updates rather. So Bill 1 from 2024, Councilmember has introduced with Councilmember Tyler Dos Santos Tam. It relates to the raising of the age of individuals that are allowed to purchase herbal cigarettes. Currently, herbal cigarettes, because they do not contain tobacco, it's not subject to the ban of selling to anyone under the 21 years of age. It was introduced earlier this month and it did pass first reading in today's council. Also, Resolution 23308, which was co-introduced with Council Vice Chair Kia Aina. This relates to the invasive species, and this resolution was adopted at this council meeting as well. That's it for legislative updates, but we do have budget coming up. So if anyone has any project ideas or stuff that you would want to get funding for, please let me know. I can go ahead and put my email and my phone number in the chat, and please feel free to reach out and try to get that work done. Other than that, if anyone has any questions for a council member, I can take them now.
Members, are there any questions for Kelly representing Council Member Wire? Oh, Kelly, earlier
Yes.
Member Dow mentioned the Central Oahu Regional Park meeting on January 29th, next Monday from 5 to 6. Will you be attending? Or
I still need, I'm sorry.
Will the office be represented?
I'm still working on my schedule. It's been kind of crazy. This is my third neighborhood board meeting this week, so got one more to go, but I will be in touch. I believe Pamela Young had reached out via email, so I will get back to her to let her know once I get that scheduled.
All right, any final questions for Council Member Wire's office? Members of the public? Seeing none, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
All right, up next, is there a representative here for Senator Kidani's office? Trevor.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the public. My name is Trevor Nagamine. I'm here on behalf of Senator Michelle Kidani tonight. So just a couple highlights from her newsletter. Opening day for the 2024 legislative session was last week, Wednesday. And so you can see some pictures of people who stopped by Senator's office. Something that Senate President Ron Pochi did highlight in his opening day speech was the Lieutenant Governor's Ready Keiki initiative, which is expanding pre-K classes that are offered in public schools. Again, we also have pictures of the new track and field at Miliani High School, which was made possible, by Senator Kidani with help from Senator Dela Cruz. And there's also information on the public access room on the last page, which is a helpful resource if you need assistance in tracking legislation as it moves through the session. So other than that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Right, members, any questions for Trevor representing Senator Michelle Kidani's office? Mary.
Okay, so here we are protecting people against herbal cigarettes. We've already protected people for flavored vaping. But I hear that cannabis, recreational cannabis, is probably going to get passed this session. I hope that's not true, but I'm wondering what's the position of Senator Kidani on passing such a bill. Thank you.
Yes, I can get it back to you on that. That's not something I'm not aware of her position offhand, just because that's not an issue that has come up recently.
Any other questions? Alex.
I just wanted to ask a question about the question that was asked. Was that in reference to the herbal cigarettes that was just mentioned earlier this evening?
Well, I hear we care about cigarettes, but I'm more concerned about cannabis.
I do believe that the reference, when that was mentioned, it was for the council member. That was a bill, so I'm not sure if Senator Michelle Kidani would.
Has nothing to
Oh,
do.
okay.
It's things that are happening in our state.
I see. Okay.
And the cannabis bills are in the legislature.
Okay.
And I understand the herbal cigarettes are in the council, but we did have the flavored vaping that was in the legislature that
Okay.
someone here might have been a proponent of. Okay, thank you.
All right, let's remind ourselves to direct questions to the speaker. Okay, any other questions for Senator Kidani's office? Yes, Darsha.
Hi, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the Grow Our Own Teachers initiative that's on the back page of her newsletter. I'm wondering if this is for the master's level for teachers or if it's also available for bachelor's degrees.
I can get back to you on that. I do know that post graduate level education in particular was a priority, just because that's kind of what's the phrase I'm looking for? It's kind of like what the usual level of education is for teachers. So typically, in order to be a licensed teacher, you have to have at least a master's level in education, or or that level of in order to be licensed. So I'm not sure if it includes teachers who are, or prospective teachers who are going to are still pursuing a bachelor's, but I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Senator Michelle Kidani's office? Questions from the public? Seeing none, thank you so much, Trevor.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that feedback. All right, I see that David Cho is online representing Senator Dela Cruz's office. David, are you with us? David, we can't hear you. Okay. We're going to move on to Representative Amy Peruso. I see that she's online. Representative Peruso, can you hear us?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Aloha, Chair and members of the board. So today was the filing deadline for bills for this session, and we're already starting to schedule hearings beginning next week. The priorities for higher education, which is the committee that I chair, include the expansion, of course, of the Hawaii Promise Program to the four-year universities, to make that available for those students who are the most economically vulnerable. The expansion of eligibility for resident tuition up to 10 years after graduation from a Hawaii high school so that we can bring our young people home. They may have gone to the continent, but we'd like to bring them back so they can contribute to our workforce and to our community. Mental health workforce development, and the teacher apprenticeship program. So that really is pulling down federal funds for the first time that's available for this profession to financially support our Grow Our Own program and pipeline. And I will mention too, just to speak to the question that was posed to Senator Kirani's office, that normally you would need to have at least a bachelor's to and then a credential license to serve as a teacher in the public schools, but our standards have dropped so dramatically in the face of the teacher shortage crisis that we currently have high school graduates, 18-year-olds, who are serving as long-term subs in some of our districts. So I would like, you know, more information from the governor's office about how they came to that analysis that the teacher shortage crisis was reduced by 50%. That does not include certified teachers. Those are emergency hires. Those are unlicensed, uncertified teachers. The final priority for our committee is UH housing. So Hale Noelani is currently shut down. It's been shut down since 2017, which has removed 550 beds from the housing supply for UH students. And we're looking to renovate that particular site and expand it to provide 1,500 beds. And why that's important is it also sits at the nexus of the housing shortage crisis in Honolulu, and also our extensive waiting list for students waiting for housing. And our local students are currently commuting and not able to even find parking. So they're having to arrive at campus in the wee hours of the morning, sleep in their cars while they wait for class, because they are not the highest priority. The first priority for housing at the University at Manoa, at least, is the folks who are coming from the continent and our international students. So we're really trying to make it make sense. And then I would say my last comment would be, you know, there's been a lot of conversation around the lapsed DOE CIP, Capital Improvement Project funds of $465 million. And I think it's really important that the community recognize and understand that the governor's executive budget is now built on the assumption of the lapsing of those funds. So if there's an effort to unlapse those funds, then it destabilizes the entire executive budget. So that's my summary, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for Representative Peruso? Mary.
Okay, I'm going to ask everyone what their position is on recreational cannabis.
Yeah,
Could you tell
so
us?
I support the legalization of recreational cannabis with the proper regulatory structure. As we've seen in many states, we can learn from their experiences, and we are missing out on really critical revenue. So yes, I support that.
Any other questions for Representative Peruso? Yes, Marilyn.
Representative, I just wondered if you were involved in trying to get another homeless organization in the Wahiawa area, because I think that Kealoha is not going to be able to represent the whole island, take care of the whole island. And I think that since with the demise of Achieve Zero, it really is kind of a critical situation. Thank you.
I agree. And while I am grateful that Kealoha is stepping into the gap, there is another nonprofit, the Aloha State Outreach, which is also trying to build capacity and applying for GIAs so that they can also contribute to this work in Wahiawa.
Members, any other questions for Representative Peruso? Yes, Leslie.
I just wanted to ask you, could you let us know the count? There's a point in time count that's you probably know about that's coming out, and you can let the board members know.
So it's my understanding, and I would love to be corrected, but I have heard from participants in our recent point in time count last week that there was a sweep the day prior to the point in time count, and that they were actually unable to find any members of the houseless community. So if that information is incorrect, I would love to be corrected, but that is my current understanding.
Okay, thank you.
I see that Anne has her hand up. Go ahead, Anne.
I do. I hate to drag this out, but Brett Perusa was always a wealth of information. So I think the last time, and I think it was, Senator Kidani that I asked this question of the last time, and there was a bill that I believe passed to provide housing for teachers, because one of the highest things, deterrents to being a teacher in the state, is the high cost of housing, which is a deterrent for a lot of things. It's also why we don't keep it. So, and I remember vaguely that there was that it was not effective because of the many restrictions meant very few people were eligible. So, Amy, can you shed some light on that?
Most recently, it was included in the budget, and actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the monies were decreased when we had the whole discussion about the budget towards the end of session, and I am pretty sure that the only monies remaining were a fraction of the funds that had been available, and they might also have been part of that lapsed DOE budget, or the CIP budget. So that might be something that David can speak more effectively to, but there has been conversation around teacher housing, and there was a concerted effort last session. But I think that those monies were first diminished and the remainder lapsed, but I am not certain.
Okay.
David, can you speak to that?
I think we'll recognize David when he
sorry.
commences his presentation.
Okay.
Any final questions for Representative Peruso from the public? Right, seeing none. Thank you so much, Representative Peruso, for being here online tonight.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you. Without further ado, we're going to circle back to David. He had some technical issues, so welcome back, David, from Senator Dela Cruz's office. Please go ahead with your presentation. Excuse me, report.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. So good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year's. I wanted to just give an update. You heard from Trevor earlier that opening day was last week. We've been really focusing on bill introduction and budget prep the last week or so. Senator is going to be chairing the Ways and Means Committee, and so his purview will include the executive budget, the judiciary's budget, and any appropriation and tax bills. So a lot of the bills in the governor's package that he mentioned in his State of the State will be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. I just wanted to circle back on Anne's question about teacher housing. So there was funding that was appropriated last year, and there were cuts made to the original appropriation. I can come back next month with the exact amount, but what the governor is doing in this upcoming budget is changing the financing for the projects. So rather than using general funds, which is technically cash, we'll be using general obligation bonds, which is a loan for the state, in kind of a basic example. So the means of financing will be changing, and that's what he's including in his supplemental request. And I can get the amount to you guys at the next board meeting. But I did drop a link earlier before I had some technical issues. It was about the state's illegal fireworks task force. I know there was some report from the last board meeting about illegal fireworks. So If you don't know what the Illegal Fireworks Task Force is, it was a bill that Senator introduced in the 2023 session. It was a task force that was created under the newly operating Department of Law Enforcement. And within the last 6 to 7 months since this task force has been in existence, they've made 3 large seizures where they've seized over 100,000 pounds of illegal fireworks. So they had seizures, I believe, in November and then 2 in December, and the poundage of that was 100,000 pounds. So they are requesting for additional funds this upcoming session. So we will be looking to support them in the supplemental budget. And I know there was some discussion last board meeting, and that's what led to the invasive species and CRB presentation today. But in this upcoming session, we'll also be looking at invasive species response funding. In fact, we just met with DOA this afternoon to discuss that. So we'll be looking at that this upcoming session. Finally, I wanted to touch up on one thing. If you haven't heard, Queens Medical System is actually going to be acquiring the Waihiwa General Hospital. So Waihiwa General Hospital, come March or April of this year, if everything gets finalized, it will become part of the Queens system, and it will become a Queens hospital. What that looks like is still to come, but they've already announced that there will be several $1 million of improvements, expanded medical services that would happen in Central Oahu, and that's key because it's the only hospital that's between basically Waipahu and the North Shore. So that's really great news to hear. We're actually working directly with them because we want to set up a medical program out there. So we will be working very closely with the community colleges and Queens as they look to get up the facility. I did want to go back to the minutes from last month. There was a question on what was going on at the Waihiwa Transit Center, or next to it. That's actually the location of the new Waihiwa Civic Center. So if you didn't know, between the Waihiwa Library and the Waihiwa Transit Center is actually state land, and those were state office buildings. And it was technically the Waihiwa Civic Center, but at a very small scale. Very limited services there. There were offices for SNAP benefits, women, children benefits, as well as adult mental health offices, and a couple other satellite offices such as CTAR. What's happening is we secured $76 million in 2020. The plans and designs took about 2.5 years, and they actually broke construction last year in August. So the construction is now proceeding, and they're looking at an opening date of 2026. A great thing that's being added to the new Civic Center is that they are expanding Satellite City Hall. So Satellite City Hall is actually at the Waihiwa Police Station, as well as the driver's licensing station. Those 2 functions will actually be moving to the Civic Center. So you'll have expanded city services, you'll have expanded state services, and you're also getting a new Waihiwa courthouse. So rather than the courthouse being where it is on Kilani Ave, you will be seeing the courthouse move into a permanent location at Waihiwa Civic Center, and there will be 2 courtrooms versus 1, I think, that's currently there right now. Other than that, I can take any questions, and I'll be back with an answer on the teacher housing for member free next month.
Okay, before we open it up to questions, I just want to put out for the board's understanding that I've received multiple requests regarding updates for the Waihiwa General Hospital and the Queens proposed acquisition. I've personally reached out to Queens to make a presentation before this board, and understandably so, they need to continue with that acquisition before they come here. So we're thinking within the next 2 months to have a presentation on that. So let's hold off any questions regarding the medical center in Waihiwa for a future meeting. And with that, and David, I'd love to work with you on that as well. I've only personally worked with Queens on this.
I
With
think,
that, I'm gonna.
Sorry, and if you don't mind me saying, the Queen's CEO actually, sorry, not the Queen's CEO, the Waipi'o General Hospital CEO does do very not month to month, but various updates throughout the year to the Waipi'o Neighborhood Board. So maybe I could ask him to make a similar presentation or an update to this board.
Okay, let's coordinate. Okay, questions for Senator Dela Cruz's office? I see Les, followed by Mary.
Yeah, I wanted to address what you were talking about the fireworks. It seems that enforcement is probably the most important thing that I can see that's not being addressed, because here in Miliani, we have somebody blowing big fireworks like a bomb, like we're in Iraq or somewhere in the Middle East. And it just seems with all the laws, all the restrictions, all the money that the state is spending at the state capitol, and it's the enforcement is just not keeping up. So we could pass all the laws we want and add more money and tax more people and everything. And then when it comes to enforcement, we got illegal fireworks still blowing out there on the streets, and it's not being addressed. And it's happening every month here in Miliani. There's thousands of people that will step forward and just like talk about it. What I've been talking about for like 3 years already. And we need to enforce it, So I'm glad that you guys are taking up the fireworks issue again, but I'm looking at more enforcement instead of spending more money and wasting more time with laws that can't be enforced. We need a team of people out there on the streets. We need investigators. We need cameras.
Okay.
Thank you.
David.
Yeah, so I think what they're really trying to work on is addressing the problem at the ports. So a lot of these seizures were actually at Honolulu Harbor, so they didn't actually get off of the barges. So I know enforcement is a big issue and it is a problem, but then because enforcement hasn't been, I guess, as strong, and the laws that we've passed haven't been as effective, what they are focusing now on is moving toward the seizure to prevent them from actually getting into the communities. So that's what the task force has focused on the last 6 months.
Thank you. Mary, question.
Okay, thank you. I'm asking everyone the same question. What's the senator's position on recreational cannabis?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't recall what his position was on those bills, so I can have an answer for the next board meeting.
Thank you, David. Any other questions for Senator Dela Cruz's office? Members of the public, question? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, David. We're going to move on to Representative Matsumoto, who's here with us tonight. Thank you.
Is this on? It has been a long week, as I led with my good morning. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. As was mentioned, we had opening day on the 17th, and it has been a nonstop flurry of activity. So you can see in my handout, there have been a lot of events since opening day. Today, you'll see we had our Women's Legislative Caucus breakfast where we unveiled our caucus package. We do that every year at the YWCA. I'm proud to be a co. It was a wonderful event this morning. If you live in District 38, we just sent out a New Year's mailer with a lot of information in regards to the session calendar. And the reason I sent that out this year is really wanting to get more people involved in the legislative session. I think that's something we can really work on. We have how to get involved PDFs as well as videos on how easy it is to testify. So please make sure you go look at that. I know last time I gave the report in November, we talked about volunteering at Miliani Library to make sure we do the tagging of all the books. I'd like to report they completed that project, so that is all done. Thank you to everybody who volunteered. I know there was members of both the Miliani and the Miliani Mauka board who volunteered for that project. We have some resources on the back, but wanted to let everybody know if you filled out my survey in November of last year, those results are up on my website, repmatsumoto.com. And like was mentioned, today was the final date of bill filing. I'll have my entire bill package for you at the next month, printed out so you can read all of that. And that completes my report for today.
Thank you, Representative Matsumoto. Mary, you have a question.
Yes, I'd like to know your position on recreational cannabis.
I had a very interesting conversation with Department of Health today, and they are taking a pretty strong stance on that. And as of right now, I will be voting in opposition to that bill, but waiting to see the testimony and the final bills that actually get chosen to move forward.
Other questions for Representative Matsumoto, members? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, Representative Lachika. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm passing out my newsletter to everybody. Just a few highlights. The first is just a picture of my staff that will be joining my office this year. So I'm very fortunate to be joined in person today by Jared, who you've met in the past. He's our policy analyst. This year, I was appointed to serve as the new vice chair for the House Committee on Education. So I'm very eager to step into this new role. And Jared will be helping me with a lot of the education bills as well as the education budget. We also have Erin, who you also met in the past. She's the person who really, is the first person you'll talk to on the phone, handles a lot of our constituent requests. Erica, who's returning from session staff last year, will be my committee clerk. And then I'm fortunate to have two interns. So mahalo to Representative Peruso's office for our Keiki Caucus intern from Miliani High School, Quincy. She's not in the picture. And then Hina, who's in the photo, is from University of Hawaii's Public Health Program, Manoa. For folks who did respond to our legislative survey, we have the results here on our top priorities. I'm very pleased to be introducing a lot of bills directly relating to some of our constituent requests. In my new role, we're also working on a handful of different pieces of legislation surrounding education. One of my top priorities is, of course, trying to restore our school bus route services. And so out of the 61 routes that were canceled on Oahu, 60 are still in need of restoration, and then as well as addressing our school bus driver shortage issue. And then I also wanted to share just some photos. I'll be working with Miliani High School. I know Representative Matsumoto had also worked with the class of the AP Environmental Science students, but I'll be working with them directly on a bill that they had helped to draft and work on this year on local school meals. And then last month, Representative Matsumoto and I partnered on a joint community workshop on disaster prevention and disaster preparedness and wildfire prevention workshop. So a ton of community members came, and we had a breakout session just covering a lot of the local action for looking at ingress routes, what to do in an event of a disaster, how to work with your neighbors, how to keep your home fire safe and fire wise. And then finally, we've just been working a lot on this issue. We have a really strong partnership with U.S. Army Garrison Hawaii and the Hawaii Department of Transportation. But we just wanted to report that we got the data back that when we did the cleanup at Kipapa Gulch, that we were able to remove a total of 19 tons or 38,000 pounds of rubbish that was hauled away from that site. So the work is ongoing. Department of Health is committed to continue to maintaining that site to make it free and clear of any future hazards. And we also have a bill to continue this agreement, and then also put in money for the Department of Transportation to continue to do this work. In the back is I did meet when Achieve Zero had shut down. I met with the Department of Human Services Homeless Programs Office, as well as City and County of Honolulu, to address the lack of a service provider for homelessness in our area. And so Kealoha West Oahu will be getting the new contract and taking over for Achieve Zero. And their phone number is here in the back. So this is from the executive director, and it's a text or call for service. So you can do both.
And they've already responded to one in the Waipi'o Acres area this past week. And then finally, for folks online, my newsletter is uploaded on the website, reptrishlachica.com under the newsletters tab. And then that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Representative. Members, are there any questions for Representative La Chica? Mary?
All right, I
Mary.
actually have two. So I do want to know your position on recreational cannabis. And also, I'm glad that you helped clean up the Capalpa Gulch. About how many people were living there? So two questions.
Yeah, so to achieve zero, and then also just the reports, because it's really the Coal Ridge residents that were affected, because the individuals who had living there had been passing through the association. And so there were more than a dozen at one point by the time my office got involved, which was summer of last year. There were 5 individuals. And so out of the 5, 2 of them accepted housing, and then the 3 relocated. And the second question, I've also been meeting with Department of Health as well as a lot of our health groups and public safety. So a lot of those groups have expressed, opposition as well as some concerns that we're not ready for it. And so at this point, although that can change, I'm also prepared to vote no on the issue. It's not a priority for me at this time.
Okay, I know so many states where they did implement it and the citizens regret it and want an appeal. So I hope we don't have to go back and forth. Let's just say no.
Thank you.
All right, members, any other
Mia?
questions for Representative La Chica? Any members of the public? Great, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, folks, it's 9:36. We're going to go into announcements. Friendly reminder that our next board meeting will be here at Miliani High School H Building on Wednesday, February 28th, 7:30 p.m. Marilyn, you have an announcement?
I'd just like to announce that the Miliani High School will be the site for the Lions Breakfast, which is an annual event, and it will be on March 10th, and tickets are available. It's most of the funding is used for educational support. Thank you.
Thank you for that announcement. Also, please follow us on YouTube. Our video recordings are available online, as well as broadcasted on Olelo Channel 49 every second Thursday, 9 a.m. and Olelo Channel 54 every first and third Saturday at 9 a.m. At this point, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Are they all in favor? Seconded by Board Member Park. All the ayes have it, and we are adjourned. Thank you, members.